This is Live from the Table bonus edition coming at you on the Riotcast Podcast Network. Dan Naturman here with Periel Aschenbrand, the producer, and Dov Davidoff, who joins me for these bonus episodes. Dov, how do you do?
How do you do? How do we all do? How does everybody do? I don't know how anybody's doing.
Well, Dov is coming to us.
I know how your hair's doing, which is questionable.
Well, the hair, I got a haircut. It wasn't good enough for you. I get it. It wasn't a great haircut. It's COVID-19. We do what we can do.
We do what we can do. I've been cutting my own hair, by the way.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's fine. And I don't know if I'm ready to go full on buzz, but, okay. that might be coming. We'll see how things go. So how have you been, Dov? I haven't seen you, I guess, since last week.
Yeah, I guess since last week. Listen, I don't know. I mean, fine overall. Whatever. The most significant experience I've had in the last several days is reading about the murder rate in New York City is 100% or 200% more than it was at this time last year over the course of several months during the
wow.
2 months. Yeah. There's a number of articles. I'm not making it up. And then there's all of this trash and lots more homeless, which is what I predicted. Okay. So I'm not opposed to racial justice. Nobody reasonable is opposed to racial justice. I am opposed to tearing down a system without creating a supplemental system and ideally a superior system to replace it with. Because once you just remove quality of life crimes, and every cop in New York City is afraid of arresting or talking to anybody non-white because they're afraid of being called a racist, the city turns into a shithole. So that's what's happening. I was here with Dinkins. I was here with Koch. It was a fucking it was filled with garbage, the city. You couldn't take a kid to a park. So anyway, that's what's going on with me. How are you guys?
Hasn't that been going on with de Blasio for years?
Nowhere near as bad as it is now, as indicated by the murder rate. In terms of my experience of garbage under the FDR Drive, the city built this beautiful setup where people can go work out. I understand, sort of the disenfranchisement and poverty and racism. It's chicken or the egg. But if you don't enforce quality of life crimes, everybody lives in a shittier place, and nobody gets hurt worse than the poor people. Who part of the movement was about, defunding really meant reorganization. You can't tear down the current mousetrap without creating a better mouse.
Once again,
now we're just in the tear down phase. And so affluent people will continue to leave New York City. Affluent people, I don't feel pity for affluent people, but they are the ones that drive a lot of the tax dollars and economic dynamism in the city. So if you want to live in Baltimore or fucking East St. Louis, that's going to be New York City if this continues. Ice cream.
Well, you're eating ice cream, Dov? Good.
I'm eating a Rocky Road. I tell you, it's a Haagen-Dazs rocking road.
Yeah.
And if there's ever been a better ice cream, I haven't heard about it.
I enjoy Haagen-Dazs compared to Ben & Jerry's. I find it a little more dignified, a little more elegant. Ben & Jerry's is trying to, they come up with names like Cherry Garcia. Spare me the pop culture references. Just give me the goddamn ice cream.
I could not agree more.
I don't need your creative, funny, like half-baked or fish soup. Just tell me what's in it.
Yeah. The kitchen sink, and it's got caramel, and then they add something else, and backing up the garbage truck. Give me a classic conservative dog.
Ice cream. I have the same problem with Geico Insurance. Are they an insurance company, or do they do comedy sketches? Every damn Geico commercial, you got cavemen, they've been trying to outdo cavemen for the past 20 years. They've been trying to out funny cavemen. You see, your insurance. If I want comedy, I'll do that.
No, yeah. If I
Why
want
am I that? But are people saying this insurance company is funny? We got to get insurance from these people.
we got to get involved. Yeah, and if we're lucky, after the car accident, we may actually get to talk to a lizard about whether or not we can claim the front end of this car.
I don't want. There's certain people I don't need to be funny. I don't need the pilot of the plane.
I don't
to
need
be
it.
jokes.
I don't want you to be funny. How do you like that? You're my doctor. Don't try to be too humorous. It'll only diminish my confidence in you. How are you,
This is
Periel?
getting back to Ben and Jerry's trying to be a little too creative. Just give me the ice cream.
Just give me the ice cream. That's it.
And Haagen-Dazs, a
Ice cream.
dignified company. Go ahead, Periel. You say
All
what?
right. I say that you guys might be very biased because you're in the very, very small minority of people who are, do this for a living. And so the average guy who's just, they're trying to connect with the general public here. They're trying to set themselves apart from all the other ice creams.
Set yourself
That's right.
apart by delivering a quality product, be it insurance
Quality
or ice
product,
cream.
high level of cream, a Haagen-Dazs, a German name, never heard an ice cream. I don't need your hippie politics in my ice cream. I don't need a Cherry Garcia, for God's sake. Keep your guitar outside of my ice
And then they
cream.
lecture you. Ben and Jerry's, and they lecture you about about politics.
Well, they're out there in the streets, those guys. They are.
Yeah.
That's fine for them to do on their own time, but just give me the ice cream. That's
Keep
how
it
I
out of my ice cream.
But isn't this like people saying actors shouldn't have political opinions?
I don't mind smart ones having political opinions, but the average actor is, leaves a lot to be desired in terms of the opinion itself. So I don't mind an actor having an opinion as long as they're not dopey. But yeah, everybody has a right to have an opinion in this country, unless, of course, you have an opinion about race. Then it's a major problem. You're not allowed to have that because
Ben and Jerry can have an opinion as Ben Cohen and Jerry Greenfield. They can have an opinion as Ben and Jerry's ice cream. I don't want to hear it.
That's right.
But Ben Cohen, the citizen, can have all the opinions he wants.
Right.
I feel the same way about actors. They're human beings and they're citizens. Thus, they can have an opinion.
Right.
But their opinion, don't. Anyway, well, you get the idea. So Haagen-Dazs always finds more elegant. Ben and Jerry's, it's fine, but they're trying to be too cute. That's my opinion about the ice cream wars.
Yes. I just saw my son. Periel, I never knew. I've never been around kids, and I didn't have any siblings who had kids before me, and so I didn't know that a 19-year-old kid. What's that?
Well, you have a sibling.
You have a sibling.
No, I don't have any nieces or nephews by way of a sibling. I meant.
Oh, okay.
And I don't have any close cousins. Long story short, I've never been around young kids.
Yeah.
I didn't know they make an erection.
Yes.
Yeah.
They
I
make
was
it
actually surprised. I'm like you. I was an only child. I wasn't around a lot of babies. I did not know that. I was a big surprise.
My kid got out of the shower today, and he was drawing, on this little thing. And I looked down, oh my God, and then he was
Go ahead. We're frozen.
with a piece, hitting a flip-flop. And I thought, I don't know when a foot fetish starts or how people.
You froze. Say it again.
Oh no, I was saying that my kid was slapping a flip-flop on the floor, and I looked down to see what he was hitting, and he had what's known as a tadpole. But I mean, it was a real. You could tell. I mean, it was child erection, and I thought
It was shocking for me too. But you should know that because didn't you guys have erections when you were little boys?
Well, I don't remember from the time I was 19 months old. I mean, I started early. I wheeled a stiff piece from a young age, but I did. But I don't remember that far back, at 19
like
years
3,
old.
4, 5?
I remember like having some, is it nascent? Is it like an interest that I didn't understand?
Right.
And you have like kind of a crush.
You know that it feels good. You remember because I remember when my son was 3, I had girlfriends of mine telling me they had daughters who were, rubbing their vaginas while just laid out on the couch. And they're like, honey, you have to do that in your room.
Right. No, yes, I've heard that. Or at least, it's but it's just funny to see it in person when you didn't know it, when you don't expect that, and so apparently it's not Yeah, I mean, it isn't the result of a sexual fantasy. He was playing with a marker and a flip-flop, but,
No.
you know, I mean,
It's totally physiological.
totally physiological. Though that doesn't mean that Dan hasn't run around his apartment with a marker, a flip-flop, and a hard-on. I mean, but by him, it was sexual.
Well, that happens to be my fetish, but that's a whole different. I have a
Of
marker.
course.
I have a marker fetish and a flip
I
flop.
got like a marker.
Dan, how's your nephew?
Oh, he's fine. He's fine. Yeah, he's fine. I don't want to get into that necessarily, but he had some tick bite or something. But so they were concerned about it. But he's doing okay. He's on antibiotic.
Good.
So that's good.
I don't want to get into details. He had a tick bite. He's on antibiotic. That's pretty detailed. I mean, you could have just moved on beyond that.
Well, all right. Those are minor details. No, because I was concerned. But anyhow, yes. By the way, last time we had on the podcast. I know Dov is not particularly interested in pop culture necessarily, but we had Ted Lange on. Ted Lange. I forgot how you pronounce his name. He played Isaac from The Love Boat, the bartender in The Love Boat.
Well, I'm interested in aspects of their lives. I mean, if they happen to be pop culture figures, then that could be interesting as well. Because
here's the thing. I personally was interested in discussing The Love Boat with him. And in particular, we had John Joseph on, who I handpicked because he's a cruise comic. And I thought we could discuss some of the differences between cruises in real life and what went on The Love Boat, and maybe some of the people that that Ted Lange met, because everybody did The Love Boat.
I think that seems like a fun topic.
But he was just off to the races. He's a perfectly nice guy. It was clear to me. I felt it was clear to me that he did not wish to talk about The Love Boat in any great detail, because he just started in with stories about Hollywood that were interesting, but not what I necessarily wanted. And so I just kind of gave up. And just said, okay, we're not going to talk about The Love Boat. But I told Periel, prior, I said, can you just email him and say we'd like to talk about The Love Boat?
Yeah.
She said she didn't want to do that. So
No.
I wondered.
Ask him if it's okay to talk about The Love Boat. And I said, well, why would I set somebody up to say no to? If he didn't want to talk about it, he would say from the beginning.
Very smart. Listen, my father always said, this was a wise piece of advice: never ask a question you don't want an answer to. While you're talking,
I wanted the answer to it, because if the answer if the answer was we're not talking about The Love Boat, I would have said, great, wonderful, but with all due respect, well, we don't need to do this podcast. Now, it so happened that he had some interesting stories anyway, which I didn't anticipate. But I did a podcast years ago with Henry Winkler. You know Henry Winkler. He played the Fonz. And so I was doing a podcast with Danny Lobel, who you may remember. He lives in LA now. And I get there, and I'm all excited to do a podcast with Winkler. And Danny Lobel says, by the way, just don't bring up Happy Days. Don't bring up Happy Days. It's Henry Winkler. What the hell am I supposed to bring up? What are we talking about? He said, well, he wants to talk about his new book about fishing. I said, well, why are we having him on to talk about Henry Winkler, to talk about fishing? This makes no sense at all.
Of course. Well, it becomes conspicuous. And so the whole time the audience is going, when are you going to talk about Happy Days? I mean, you got to be able to thread that needle, especially if you're in the entertainment business. You know damn well what people want to talk to you about. I don't know the name of the guy from the tugboat, the Love Boat. The Tugboat is a different. That was a different.
That's a different show.
I didn't grow up with television. So yes, the Love Boat. It's not the Tugboat. But on the Love Boat, he thinks that you want to interview him about politics. I mean, the thing is, if you're allowed to, discuss the Love Boat for a little while, you get the questions out of the way, and then we can move on to what else the guy wants to talk about.
Move on out of the way.
But you can't open the door with somebody like that and be like,
well,
once you start taking things off the table, you're setting yourself up.
But you have to know up front if they're unwilling or don't desire to talk about these topics. It makes sense to know up front.
Because he wrote in his bio that he sent me, and he was.
But he also said when you forwarded to me several things that he wanted us to look at, including a couple of plays that he had written, and I got a spider sense that he didn't want to talk about the Love Boat. Okay, normally I would agree with you, but I got a spider sense because of what you told me.
Listen, it's good radio if he doesn't want to talk about it, and you do. If you ask him beforehand, then the whole tension is gone. It's much more fun to say, hey, so about this Love Boat. And he goes, well, he tries to avoid it. You go, listen, what do you think that, part of what's interesting about you is the goddamn role that we all know you from. Nobody, I forget the guy's name, but I'm sure that not one person in the audience is going, I hope they talk about his playwright. No one's saying that, and he's got to know that. And hopefully you talk about the
I don't have the balls to do that. You're correct.
You do have the balls. Listen to me. What are you? You're a political, a touchy-feely political show host. Your job is to make things interesting. Hopefully they can also be funny and engaging and dynamic. An argument. Have you learned nothing from Stern? An argument is worth more than him talking about playwriting.
I know, but you have to have what Stern has that we don't have is they got to be nice to him because he's Stern, and he can also
no, stop. He was like that from day one.
But also, if they leave, he's got other things he can go to. Whereas we had just booked Ted. You're right. I didn't have the balls to push.
Listen to me. You're better off going to the other things than you are talking to him about playwriting for 60 minutes. You follow me? At least you'll get an argument out of it with the guy from the Tugboat. That's the way to do it.
And
the Tugboat was another show that only that was. Anyway, go ahead,
I feel like it's a calculated risk. You get somebody like that on, you have to assume that that's an okay question. You have to be willing to push for it. If they don't want to talk about it, they'll tell you, like Henry Winkler did.
That's exactly right.
In this case, he didn't tell us about not wanting to talk about it.
And you're right. I think he would have talked about it.
I did not get that sense.
Worry about what sense you get. You ask him any questions that comes to you about that Love Boat, because that's what's interesting, and then we can talk about other stuff too.
I thought it would be fun too, because me and John Joseph both worked on cruise ships. The great contrast between a cruise ship and the Love Boat, for example, on a cruise ship nobody speaks English, or certainly not their native language, and on the Love Boat everybody was American. The bartender, the captain, but on the real ships.
That's already funny and interesting.
There's everybody speak. The bartender's from Bosnia.
Listen, not addressing cruise ship culture with that guy is like talking to somebody with two heads and never asking him what it's like to have two heads. You understand? You got to address it. I don't care what he wants. We don't have to talk about it for 59 out of 60 minutes, but we have to get it out of the way.
I have a confession to make.
Okay, Periel, well, live and learn. Periel, you have a confession.
I've never seen The Love Boat.
Oh, really?
Well, you're a little bit younger. You're a 41 or 42. I guess that was a little bit, before you. But anybody that's, an older generation has heard of The Love Boat.
Well, I've heard of it.
Yeah.
She's heard of it. She's not from Yugoslavia.
Right, has seen it, I should say. But in any case,
didn't you guys meet up in real life recently? Or at the Cellar?
We met up last week for Frisbee and dinner. I haven't been to the Cellar yet since the closure. The Cellar is now open. Pardon?
It's open for.
It's open for outdoor dining. The Olive Tree Cafe upstairs is open for outdoor dining.
Wow. All right. So
it might be worth going there just to see, whoever we see. I don't know.
Absolutely. You get to say hi to some people. Absolutely it is. Sure. Yeah. We should go down there. We should do it Tuesday, but Levine won't go downtown, but we'll figure it out. Tuesday
is tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Tomorrow. That's what I meant. But if this COVID thing is this contagious in the summer where weather is warm and humid, which is the least likely conditions in which this is transmitted or
shed. Dr. Davidoff?
Well, yeah, that's what I hear. It's the heat and then the humidity, which is why flu is so much less likely in the warm months. And so the likelihood in the fall is significantly higher. So I'm worried about the state of indoor experiences in general. And so comedy is...
But how do you account for what's going on in Brazil?
What's going on in Brazil?
I mean, the numbers are like...
In terms of the humidity and the...
Well, that's how contagious this stuff is. I mean, if you're indoors in the fall and you have not flattened the curve or eliminated a lot of the probability, you're gonna, I don't know.
The whole thing started from one person. So as long as there's even one person left that has it, once we stop lockdown, the whole thing could start over again. So I don't understand what we're waiting for, because if we're waiting for eliminate it entirely, I don't know if that's feasible. And if we're waiting...
Well, I was reading that some notable epidemiologist that was involved in the programming in Sweden, and their idea of herd immunity was that this thing is, you're not going to just stomp it out until there's a vaccine, and it's going to continue to linger. And the best thing we can do is social distance and still stay in business. And they said that America, either you go full Asian lockdown or you go herd immunity. But if you try to do it in between, it becomes a game of whack-a-mole. And so their position is that we did it very wrong. Go hard or go home was what the Swede basically said. But nobody in America can listen. So you can't uniformly get people to wear masks. Everybody's going to show up when they shouldn't because we lack an Asian discipline. And that's what's going to jam us up. You understand what's going on? We lack a discipline in this country.
We have a frontier spirit,
No, not anymore. We just lack discipline. We used to have a frontier spirit, in which case, yeah.
It's really terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that the way that COVID has been handled in America is probably one of the greatest failures, of which there have been many, of the past 100 years easily.
Yeah, listen, it's not good, and it's even less good in urban centers. So we'll see, knock on wood. If you were watching the stock market, you'd never know there were any issues at all. I mean, it's a strange disconnect, but that's neither here nor there.
So, Dee, any news with fatherhood, or with your divorce, or any interesting tidbits?
Any news? I just told you my kid's 19 months old, had a heart on the length of a baby spoon. You understand? My kid is all man. He's ready to go, baby.
Well, yes. Okay. As far as
the kid's got a pole the size of a chapstick. You understand?
Which I guess for 19 months is pretty good.
Oh, such a pole. At 19 months, a full chapstick?
I mean, we often talk about penis size as adults. Is there a difference with regard to children penis size? I mean, adults often there's variation, as we know, but I don't know that there's much variation in children. I don't necessarily think that there is. I think all children have roughly the same size. I'm not sure. I haven't really looked or done research, and when I was a kid, I didn't notice. But I don't know that there's any major difference.
If there were ever an area to avoid topic-wise, it's not the Love Boat. It's the size of young children's pieces. That would be the area you want to avoid.
Well,
I was just thinking, I don't know why we can't
with due respect, you brought it up, but
I brought it up because it was my kid, and it's an innocent thing, and there's nothing wrong with it, and it was a funny sort of observation, because if you've never been around kids and you don't know, it was sort of surprising. I mean, there's nothing lascivious about it.
Well, I didn't mean it lasciviously either. I'm just saying scientifically.
I understand. I know.
Now, as I remember as a little kid, all the older kids were talking about, I got a big cock. How big's your cock? You got a big cock. The older kids in the neighborhood. And as
I don't remember that. I don't remember that.
I remember because I remember thinking to myself, who cares how big your cock is? Do I need to, because as a 5, 6, 7-year-old, whatever it is, that's all, it's just you're aiming your urine with.
Who was talking about that at
older
that age?
The older boys.
How old?
The older boys. Well, you're talking like 26? 26? How old?
I think other kids in the neighborhood that were 11, that they heard it from their older brothers. So it was like it got transmitted down, and somehow
talking about it? Okay.
I remember people. I remember at summer camp. I was 10 years old. Hey, I got a big car. How big's your car? You got a big. I
Yeah,
think
no,
you just heard it from the older kids and from the movies or whatever.
listen,
And maybe they knew what the significance of it was because maybe they were more educated on the matter.
I'm just surprised that it was happening at scale. I didn't realize you went to porn summer camp. I had never heard more than a couple of kids mention peace size. Apparently, on bunk number 14, where you were living, every kid in the room was talking about cock size. It just surprises me, that's all.
Well, we were 10, so I assume that some of the kids probably knew what sex was and might have actually known what the significance of penis size was.
Yeah.
As I always say, the two things I never understood as a young boy is the significance of penis size and oil. Those are the two things that seem to obsess adults.
Oil?
Yeah, oil. I never understood why adults would talk about oil all the time. Like, oh, oil, price of oil, black gold.
Oh, I see what you're talking about. It was an economic conversation. They were talking about the price of oil.
I didn't know how important oil was, and I didn't know the importance of a large penis.
No, I see. That's a fascinating observation made by a madman. But yeah, I get it.
I just thought oil was what you put in the door to make it. I just figured, because adults were talking about, what if we run out of oil? And I'm thinking, well, I guess we'll have squeaky doors.
Right,
But is it that big a deal?
Right. Well, also in the 70s, the price of oil skyrocketed, which was very impactful to the average American. You know,
Well,
there was that.
The gas, there were I understood the importance of gas. I didn't know that gas came from oil. I didn't make that connection.
Understand.
You understand?
Yes.
I thought oil was I thought oil was, oil, you got oil is like the Tin Man. The Tin Man needs oil.
No, listen, you had a lot on your plate. I mean, at 10 years old, you were still digesting all of the range of penis sizes associated with everybody in your bunk that was talking about whether or not they had a 15-year-old cousin that had a pole on. I mean, yeah, no, that's interesting. That is interesting, right?
I don't know why we can't make it through one episode without me having to do mental gymnastics about what part I have to edit out.
Why would you have to edit out any of those?
That's humor.
Discussion.
That is humor.
I don't know, the children with the penis size.
Because
no, it's nothing lascivious. It's an innocent penis
sexual.
size.
It's just wondering whether there's any variation amongst younger folks.
It's a delicate time. Yeah.
It's a delicate time.
Delicate time. Yes.
Well, actually, yeah, it's a delicate time. But if you don't mention the race of the child, I don't think anybody's gonna. I don't think there'll be any issues on social media. It's only delicate in certain areas.
Right.
No, it's also delicate because of the issue of pedophilia has become something that we discussed that.
You're talking about. No, but that's not pedophilia. I mean, I understand the word is being thrown around. Pedophilia is when somebody's.
Pedophilia. That's not pedophilia.
You get wrapped up with a 17-year-old.
That's the word that people have been using to describe these.
Well, they're using the wrong word. I mean, I can't take responsibility for them not knowing the definition of the word they're using.
That's something of particular
sensitivity, if you will.
Sensitivity.
Yeah, I agree.
I have a question.
Yes.
Did that tattoo say mad or dad?
Where? I got a lot of them.
I just see AD.
Oh, no, it's my father's initials, AD.
Oh.
His initials is Alan Davidoff. So yeah, it's just AD. When I was when I was younger, I've always liked tattoos. I'm not quite sure why, and part of it was just cultural and socioeconomic, as so many young people's decisions are. If I had it to do over, I might not ink up, but
really? Why? They're great.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have any major issue with them. I just, as long as people don't attribute too much significance to this was when just take care of your kid, whether or not you got his initials on your arm, just make sure you do the right thing by the kid. There are all kinds of people that show up twice a year to their kid's birthday party and then Christmas, but they have them tattooed on their arm.
Do you have any Emerson tattoos?
No.
How many ex-girlfriend and ex-wife tattoos are on your body?
None. I mean, the process I am now, I have one that says Jess, but it's and then one that was older, one that was covered up. But after you have several tattoos, it's not that big of a deal. If I have a name that's written right here, I can turn that into an eagle, baby. I can turn that into a bird or an Indian sign. It's not hard to do. I mean, you know, I once saw a prostitute that had Ty's bitch written across her neck. It's a TY apostrophe S written big across her neck. That's a problem. But if you have a small lettering, you know, somebody's first name on your arm, you can get that done over in 15 minutes. They'll knock it right out in a tattoo parlor.
Well, as you probably know, I don't have any ink. It would be ridiculous for me to have ink. It's just so not.
It's not your style. We get it. It's not your style.
It would be absurd. Yeah. It would be me trying to be something that I'm not.
Well,
you know, what does that mean? How so?
Well, to me, look, I'm old school, first of all. I grew up at a time when you had ink meant you were in the military or you were a biker,
right,
you know, or you had done time. Now, all of a sudden, you know, everybody has tattoos. So it's taken me a while to adjust to that. But even there, I feel like I'm, even by today's standards, I'm not a tattoo type person. You know, to me, there's a certain...
Have you been to the Genius Bar at an Apple store lately? I mean... You know, it's, you know, but I understand what you're saying. When I grew up, they were not common too among certain socioeconomics. So but I grew up, you know, in a shitty environment. So they were common among the people I knew. But yeah, they were not.
How old were you when you got your first tattoo?
Oh, I was like 18, like just turning legal age.
And then how often do you get them? Like, are you still getting them?
Every year, every couple of years, you know, I'd be walking around someplace, or I'd be on the road and I'd stop in and get something. But I don't know. I mean, there is some. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I think early on, I think it's more superficial and aesthetic, even though like some of the stuff is from books and things that are very meaningful to me. But, you know, you write that on your soul, whether or not you have it tatted on your arm, what's the difference? But somebody once said it's important to commit to the things that you love. And they were talking about things that they had tattooed on their body, but I don't see it as important. And it can be important. It depends what you do with it. But I enjoy the way ink looks, I think.
I don't know if I ever asked you if you miss doing stand-up. I don't think I know a lot of comics have said that they had missed it. I don't know if I ever asked you that question.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think you answered it, which is you don't miss it, the thing that much. You miss the sort of circumstances around it.
I miss the social. Yeah, I guess I did address that.
I miss all of that as well. And I've had these thoughts, you know, that like a premise that you'd want to build into something. And so I miss having the ability to go on and make connections with people and, you know, and sort of that creative process. I miss, like, you know, trying to create a new piece of something, but also stand-up. Although the stand-up part is inseparable from some of the social part, and I feel isolated. So it makes me miss it that much more.
What about the road? I mean...
Yeah, well, I miss the paychecks. I miss the paychecks, and I miss aspects of the road. Yeah, because it felt like, I don't know, it just feels more engaging than the groundhog type day that is more associated with this COVID landscape, you know? But,
well, it's astounding. We're almost in July. I mean, this thing started in mid or early May. The amount of time is just insane. In March, rather. March. I meant March. Yeah, just insane how long we've been living this way.
It really is, and it's perhaps the more challenging aspect of it is that it ain't coming to a close anytime soon.
Well, we just don't know. I mean, as you said,
no, we do know. We do know it's not going to end in the next month and a half. We know that.
Yes, we know that. Whether it's and Broadway, by the way, I think just announced they're not opening until January 2021. So
you've got Disney, you got Broadway, you got pro sports, you've got every bar in New York City. You can have a drink on the sidewalk. What happens when it comes to the fall, especially for single people and young people? It's like, you're going to lock yourself in your apartment. It's one thing if you've already led that life and you have a wife and a kid, or you know, I mean, it's tough on people psychologically, you know, and all the other ways it's tough.
Well, your kid, as I mentioned, by the time he's even aware, it'll all be over. I mean, you know, he gets to just be a kid through all of this. And then when he's 3 or 4 and actually knows what the hell's going on, you'll be able to say, you won't believe what just happened.
That's right.
Because he doesn't, I mean, I don't even know if at 19 months you're even, maybe you are, I have no memory of it. If you're even kind of aware of anything,
He's not gonna remember anything.
No.
And for him, life, who will?
My son will.
Your son probably will never forget, this for him is a big deal. But for Emerson at 19 months, he's doing what he would have done anyway. He's crapping his pants. He's running around the yard, and he's doing what he might otherwise have done.
He's doing what he does, I saw him, yeah.
Oh, no, I mean, they're missing out on socialization, I mean, that's not a healthy, normal thing for any of us, including very small children.
Well, what socialization does a 19-month-old have necessarily?
A lot.
I don't really recall.
They go to little classes and they have little friends and, they're around other kids. It's how you learn to function in the world.
It is. I had to read my kid a book earlier this afternoon called Teeth Are Not for Biting and Hands Are Not for Hitting, because the kid is slapping at things and they'll try to, he's not sure yet. But when you socialize the kid, you let him know that,
Yeah.
I don't recall doing much socialization until like 3 years old, but maybe
I can tell. I mean,
that could just be my memory could be faulty, or that could just be how it was.
No, you wouldn't remember though. I mean,
or I don't remember. I'm sure my parents took me, whatever, to the beach, and I played in the sand, and I put sand in the bucket.
You had 2 sisters, right, Dan?
Yeah, well, I had 2 sisters. Yeah.
Well, that's a form of socialization. If you're an only child, although Jessica has a friend and they play with her friend's daughter, and we still go to the playground. I had them at the playground today, and so in New York City, playgrounds are back open. By the way,
yeah,
they're all opening up. So I don't know.
Wise?
Well, it seems like a lot of the transmission isn't outdoors in the sun and on the open air, but I don't know what's wise anymore. I mean,
but as you said, like when the fall hits, then what do? You can't hang out outside. Are we back to lockdown? And do we have the resolve to do this again?
Yeah, and forget fall. What about winter?
Yeah, that's right. What about winter? Yeah.
Fall is like you can function outside in the fall. It's, what about, February?
I don't think that the resolve is there on a national level to initiate another, big lockdown. I don't see the will there, and I see the economic impact being so profound that the underlying comorbidities is the word, comorbidity, being so negative that they'll really question whether or not, I don't think they will. I don't think both.
I mean, you understand that Europe is banning Americans from entering the continent at this point. Like they're looking at this, us like, we're just like the biggest morons on the planet.
Yeah. No. They
at the end of the day,
before, but now they know it.
But if all we're doing by locking down is slowing the process, maybe it's better to just let things go, because if we're all going to get it anyway, then what's the sense prolonging it? I guess the sense would be to get a vaccine.
Which I'd like to go on record and say this vaccine stuff is fucking nonsense. There's never been a vaccine in the history of medicine that's been turned around that quickly.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that as well.
The flu vaccines are different every year, I believe. I believe every year the flu vaccine is slightly different because there are different strains of flu. So in that sense, there are new vaccines, I believe.
Yeah, but the flu vaccine doesn't necessarily prohibit you from getting the flu.
No, but it's very helpful. It lessens the impact a great deal. It's very, very helpful. And we've also never had the entire resources of the world working on a vaccine, with this level of intensity. So I think that that's a factor as well.
Right. Yeah, it's a factor. Yeah.
I'd like to balance that out also by saying I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Well, that's
Oh, yeah, but
part of your brand.
There are plenty of PhDs on both sides of that argument. So I'm not sure that knowing what we're talking about actually makes a difference here. I mean, you can find doctors that don't see it coming, and other doctors are pretty confident there'll be a vaccine. I don't know. I don't know what to think.
We're almost at the end, but I do want to ask, and I sent you a quick text about this, about the idea of bringing guests into the bonus podcast, which so far it's just been us, but, we only talk about your child's erection or my hair so many times.
Right.
And unless something brand new comes up, then maybe it's worth inviting. I don't know who are people you enjoy talking to, Dov. I know you mentioned.
I mean, in the event, if you actually want things to discuss, I mean, you can just run the top 5 things in addition to whatever you wanted. In addition to that, there could be the top 5 search, trending things on Google. Like, there's always a million things to talk about. You don't need somebody else, but
that's actually a really good idea. I like that idea.
I don't mind that, but Dov doesn't necessarily love talk about pop culture necessarily.
No. I said the top trending things, and I'm fine talking about pop culture in the context of me not necessarily knowing, and so I would try to make something funny or engaging or have a comment about it. I want to talk all day about Justin Bieber, but who the fuck does? I mean, if you're talking about things that are trending, it's going to be political, it's going to be cultural, it's going to be racial. It'll be interesting. I'm not worried about that.
Try that. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, literally just pull the top 5 trending things on Google that week, and whatever the most interesting ones are, the top 10, you pull 5 of them, and then in addition to whatever's going on in our lives, and then in addition to that, you get a Todd Beret, you get an Al Toucher, you get, we can figure something out.
But with all due respect, I mean, I think the idea is that you guys are the talent here, right? We're not trying to farm out and get other people.
Oh, but the talent, part of the talent is learning how to. It's like playing an instrument.
Yeah.
I'm playing the Todd Barry over here.
Yes.
Yeah, we do that twice a week. So it's like you guys need to step up to the plate and shine bright, honey.
Yeah, shine bright, boy.
Well, the difference being is the guests on the Noam podcast tend to be more political, tend to talk about issues where,
Listen, so why don't we try to, get one guest a month? We'll have somebody on once a month, once out of every 4 times, or if you want twice, we try that.
Okay, so possibilities are Al Toucher, Todd Beret.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Up a little bit.
Have some other things.
Yeah, you can go right down any list of comedians. I mean, nobody has anything to do right now. I mean, we can get plenty of comedians.
Well, although Todd Barry and Al Toucher both had things to do tonight. So.
Well, if you talk to them 10 minutes before the podcast, they've got to mentally prepare. That's what being on the edge psychologically is.
I'm skeptical that Todd Beret had anything to do. I just think he didn't want to do it.
Which is not true. That's not true. He had another show. I believe him.
He might have had another Zoom. He might have had another Zoom.
Todd is very involved with his cat.
Yeah, I know Todd is a cat lover.
He's a cat lover. So we can talk about that, but we'll talk about.
There are people.
What's that?
There are people who those are the kinds of people that they are. They have these relationships with their animals.
Yes, that's right.
Which is something.
That's look. We can't pathologize things unless, of course, they're preventing those people from achieving some objective in their life. In which case, if you're not really able to sustain a relationship, but you're super involved with your cat, then there may be an issue. But otherwise, we'll talk to that. We'll talk to that Todd Beret.
I know somebody. Okay, go ahead. Never mind.
I'm saying, so Periel, if you could put Todd Beret on the calendar.
I will.
Hey, everybody.
And in terms of Dan, social media, that branding stuff. So what can I tweet out? I mean, other than just a link and like a static picture of what we're doing right now, is there anything that I can
I'm waiting for a little video.
Okay. All right. All right, all good.
All right, so we'll see you. I guess that's it for today, and we'll see you next time.
God bless.
On Live from the Table, the
Live
bonus
from the Table.
episode. Podcast at comedycellar.com for comments and suggestions. And
Bye,
we'll see you.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.